are here today. Uh, the president-elect for Nigerian Society of Engineers, the current president of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations, past President Konke, President-elect Mustafa Shehu, and presidents of the Federation of Africa Engineering Organizations, current and past. So it's a very illustrious audience here tonight, and it gives me great pleasure to give my presentation on the work that's being done by Wfeo with special relation to Africa. So if you could permit me to share my screen. Yes, thank you. So President Jose Vieira has already mentioned Africa Engineering Week, which is next week. So I will not be mentioning that, but I will be talking about the other projects that we have been working on. I won't repeat my bio, but here's my topics. I'm going to talk about Wfeo and our work in aligning engineering to advance the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the challenges in Africa, which can be addressed through engineering, and then our projects relating in particular to Africa. So for those who don't know, and Mr. Ben Osioko did describe Wfeo, we are the peak body for engineering, and you see here the member map. The areas in blue show our members as of June 2023, over 100 members, national and international. And Nigerian Society of Engineers is a member, national member, and the Federation of African Engineering Organizations is an international member. And we have some 27 national members from Africa at Wfeo. And we represent the UN engineering at the UN and its related organizations, and we co-chair the major science and technology group at the UN. Engineering, education, and capacity building has been a core value since Wfeo was established. And we reiterated this on our 50th anniversary in March 2018, when I was president, through the Paris Declaration that was signed with UNESCO to advance the UN Sustainable Development Goals through engineering. First time that we had made such a public statement. And the declaration in particular recognized the need for more engineers with the right skills, that is to increase both the number and the quality of engineering. Because we recognize that every one of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals require engineering. The second UNESCO engineering report that was released on World Engineering Day, March 2021, also made the same recommendations and recognized the need for more engineers where they're needed the most, especially in Africa. Because here are our challenges. Safe drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene is still out of reach for billions. Some 2.2 billion people lack safely managed drinking water, as you can see here, and 2.2 billion lack basic hand washing facilities, and 3.5 billion people globally lack safely managed sanitation. Safe and reliable energy is another big challenge, both in Oceania and Sub-Saharan Africa. 675 million people still live in the dark as of 2022, and 4 in 5 of them are in Sub-Saharan Africa. And public transport, again, is lagging in Africa, as you can see here, and needs far more investment in infrastructure. Access to mobile telecommunications, especially the 4G network, is lagging again, as you can see. Only 49% in 2022 have access in Sub-Saharan Africa. And climate change, above all, is the global challenge for all of us engineers. The world is at its tipping point, and what we need is deep, rapid, and sustained action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And all this requires engineers. You see here a table that I've put together with some rough data on the numbers of engineers per 100,000. In general, in the developed countries, the numbers are about 1,000 per 100,000 of population. As you can see in the USA, UK, Germany, and France, it's around 1,000. But in the southern part of Africa, it varies from only 18 to around 500. This is in South Africa. By comparison, some of the other countries that are on the journey to development, such as Malaysia, it's about 588 or 600. Philippines, it's 700, and Brazil, 400. And here you see some of the detail of the statistics of the numbers per 100,000. And you can see Malawi has only 18. So a huge gap in the numbers of engineers that we need in Africa. And you can see here a correlation between the country's GDP per capita and the engineering index prepared by the Royal Academy of Engineering. This dates back to 2016, but I don't think it has changed very much. And you can see that countries with higher engineering capacity also have high GDP. And we don't have a single country from Africa listed on this table. So this just again shows us the gap that we have to address. And even more so, we have an imperative to retrain our existing engineers from the coal, oil, and gas sector to move more to the renewable energy sector. This is another huge task that we must face. So we do need a change. We need more engineers with the right skills, especially in Africa. In 2017, when I took up my presidency, I stated the Wfeo Engineering 2030 plan with 12 principles for action. And I share with you tonight the progress that has been made so far. Items 3 and 4 was to address the global standard for engineering education. And as you have recently just heard in the introduction, Wfeo completed this task in partnership with the International Engineering Alliance in record time. We started in November 2019 and finished in June 2021. We have commenced mentoring in partnership also with IEA and other signatories to support our members to reach the signatory status of the International Engineering Alliance. And we have also established the Wfeo Academy for capacity building and training of accreditation bodies, professional engineering institutions, and qualified engineers. But there is more work to be done. And I highlight these in green for our future leaders to take on the task and continue the journey to support national and international recognition for mutual recognition of qualifications and mobility of engineers, to liaise with governments to establish consistent regulation policies, and to establish an international platform for engineering standards and professional development under the auspices of Wfeo and UNESCO. I will talk a little bit about the UNESCO, Wfeo, and IEA partnership in reviewing the graduate attributes and professional competency benchmark, the gold standard for engineering education. The review, as I mentioned, was commenced in November 2019 and completed in June 2021, entirely during COVID, in partnership with other international engineering organizations, such as Educators, which is IFES, the Federation of Engineering Education Societies, the Global Consulting Engineers, or FIDIC, the Network of Women Engineers and Scientists, INWES, and the International Center for Engineering Education based at Tsinghua University. Having approved this in 2021, ICEE translated these into the 6 official UNESCO languages, and the 3 of these have been approved and uploaded on the IEA website. The remaining 3 are being reviewed by the signatories. And you see here the versions in Spanish, Chinese, and French. And this has led to a huge increase in the uptake of the benchmark and incorporating that in the engineering curriculum around the world. And the idea of sustainable development and advancing those goals with engineering has also been embraced as a result of this review. In the second project, we commenced mentoring, and you see here the work that we did in 2021 and 2022 with 3 countries in Africa: Mauritius on the top, on the bottom left, and top left. We have. On the top left we have Mauritius. Top right we have Kenya, and bottom left we have Ghana. Unfortunately, Kenya and Ghana did not progress very far, but Mauritius is very close to applying for provisional signatory status in 2024. And you see here the huge support from the Mauritius government and all the engineering entities in Mauritius at the site visit that was done in June 2022 to all the 3 universities in Mauritius. And you see here, present at the opening was the chair of the Council for Registration of Professional Engineers, president of the Institution of Engineers Mauritius, our national member of Wfeo, the Minister for Science and Technology, the chair of the Engineering Accreditation Board in Mauritius, the chair of the Mauritius Institute of Education, and the chair of the Tertiary Education Commission in Mauritius. So there is a huge government support for this very important project, which is nation building and will, as we saw previously, really support the economic development of this nation. The Wfeo Academy has been established as an online portal and continues to grow. It's a free portal for individuals who are national members of Wfeo, and they can access online learning at any time for their professional development. This portal activates the UNESCO Open Science recommendations by transferring knowledge to developing countries at no cost. The Wfeo Climate Change Education Project has been delivered in partnership with the Office of Climate Change Education, a UNESCO Category 2 organization, and also in partnership with the Institution of Engineers Mauritius and other organizations in Mauritius. This was completed again after 3 years in November 2022 because we could not meet face-to-face due to COVID. And this workshop has resulted in training of some 80 teachers and teacher trainers with curriculum development for ongoing teaching of climate change. It also used UNESCO training contents called Sandwatch. And here you see the teachers at their hands-on workshop during that course. And we are ready to deliver that in other nations in Africa. And finally, I mentioned the Africa Coalition for Sustainable Development in Engineering, which is just being formed under the auspices of Wfeo, the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, and the UN Economic Commission for Africa. This was initiated, as mentioned by President Jose Vieira, as an outcome of the first UN Africa Day held in New York this year on 2nd May, and organized by Dr. K.N. Gunalan, the chair of the Wfeo UN Relations Committee. I was fortunate to chair a session and attend a meeting where the coalition formation was mooted. We have progressed to sign up 9 partners from Wfeo, the young engineers, and the Wfeo Academy is being offered. Wfeo is likely to be a party as they are signing an MOU with Wfeo. We have the Federation of African Engineering Organizations. Mr. Papias Kazawadi has put in a proposal, but this requires significant funding, which we don't have at the moment. The TCC, which is a UNESCO Category 2 Center for Engineering Education, the first in Africa, based in KNUST in Ghana, and which I helped to establish by getting the approval through UNESCO, is also interested in participating, but proposals require significant funding. The Office of Climate Change Education is running a climate change training project called ARIS, which is Africa focused, and they are willing to participate. The Global Infrastructure Anti-Corruption Center is offering training for anti-corruption for infrastructure projects in Africa. ICEE at Tsinghua University, it has also expressed interest, but their projects, again, require some funding. International Network for Women Engineers and Scientists has an Africa regional network And they willing to support the project with their networks and other activities to support women in STEM in Africa. And the Royal Academy of Engineering through the Africa Catalyst is also willing to participate. So you can see we're well on our way to have a suite of projects that will really advance sustainable development. And of course, World Engineering Day is a great opportunity for all nations in Africa to advance engineering and to talk about engineering. And you see here, World Engineering Day this year, March 2023, the launch of the first African Journal of Engineering in Kenya. A great example of how WFEO is working with its members in Africa to promote and support engineering for sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marlene, for that beautiful presentation. Well detailed and well explained. On that note, let me also bring back the chairman of the planning committee, Engineer Valerie Aberaba, to introduce our next presenter, who is Gonki.
Thank you, Director. Engineer Gonke is a past president of the WFEO. He was president 2019 to 2021. Engineer Gonke is an electrical engineer with expertise in information communication technology and has more than 30 years experience in engineering education, research, and management. Since 2009, he has dedicated himself to WFEO activities and has made great contributions to the development of WFEO with his effort and experience. As the chairman of China National Committee of WFEO, he has organized and led Chinese engineers to actively participate in WFEO's activities and giving full support to WFEO's activities in China. He has also stressed the essential role of engineering and engineers in the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda through his engagement in drafting relevant documents and his attendance in high-level fora of the UN. He was one of the 26 members of the United Nations Secretary General's Scientific Advisory Board. He has established strong bonds with the United Nations, other international organizations, and industrial communities. Engineer Gonke, you're welcome. You have the floor for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to join this important event with our African fellow engineers talking about WFEO. After the comprehensive presentation made by Marlene Kanga, I just want to briefly summarize 3 messages for your consideration. Now I share my screen and here. So the first message I like to bring to you is that WFEO is the world's largest engineering family, and our African member organizations are playing active roles in WFEO platform. So here with this picture, you see the dark part of the world map is covered by WFEO Federation. And here I listed the national members. The more than 100 national members make this organization, this federation, the world's largest engineering family, which represents tens of millions engineers across the world. And here I try to summarize the roles among many others. I want to stress the 5 roles we are playing. First, we are playing the leadership role for the World Engineering initiatives, such as World Engineering Day initiative and so on and so forth. And second, we are representative of engineering profession in United Nations stages. The third role of WFU were the gateway to United Nations and other major international activities for our member organizations. The fourth role we are playing is as a platform for engineering collaboration between our national members and international members. We work together on the platform of WFU. And finally, we are the center for engineering capacity building. So I think that's the 5 important roles played by WFU. And with this picture, you can see the WFU engages intensive project collaboration around the world through standing technical and policy implementation committees. African member organizations are playing an active role hosting these 4 important committees for WFU. So the first message I want to bring you is that WFU's role in the international stage. Second message is that WFU is leading the world engineering profession to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. But now the world is off the track of the SDGs. Engineering community should shoulder the responsibility to bring the world back on track. So actually, in this week, the United Nations member states leaders gathered in New York have this week has a high-level week for the sustainable development. And the new global sustainable development report is released this week officially in New York. And the title, the theme of this report is Times of Crisis, Times of Change. So from this chart, you can see only about 15 sustainable development goals and targets is on track. About 30%, more than 30%, has not significant progress or even failed, lower than the baseline in the year 2015. And here you see the regional scores for the Sustainable Development Goals Index. Sub-Saharan Africa has the lowest score for the progress of the SDGs. And in this report, a model has proposed for comprehensively to implement the SDGs. Again, as a lever, governance, finance, engagement, science and technology, as a previous report. But a new lever is mentioned, that is capacity building. Because behind the gap of the development is the gap of capacity. That is a very important reason for the growing gaps in development between global North and global South. So this final message I like to bring to you is that we together should make more efforts to develop our capacity, especially the capacity of leveraging emerging digital technologies, such as artificial intelligence, among many others, to transform engineering into digitalized engineering and the low carbon engineering, so that we can make our efforts to bring this world better, more inclusive, more sustainable, and more have a more brighter future for the all people on the earth, leave no one behind. So I think I have only 5 minutes. I use out my time, and thanks for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gonke, for that beautiful presentation. Let me also invite the chairman of the planning committee to introduce our next presenter, Martin Manua, who is also a vice president of WFEO.
Thank you, Derek.
Engineer.
So I think at this point, to manage time, we might have to reduce the intro and just call on the speakers, because we have said we'll run the program at 1 hour 30 minutes, and we still have quite a lot of speakers. I'm told Martin Manoa sent a recorded message because he's in transit right now. So maybe we can call on the chairman of Engineering Council of Ghana, Kwame Boakye, to maybe speak now, and we present Martin Manoa's video at the end. Is that okay, Director?
All right, that's okay.
Thank you. Please, Engineer Boakye, you have the floor, so please just go ahead. And immediately after you, we have the president of the Wfeo, Engineer Papayas Kazawadi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam incoming president of NSE. And thanks for the invitation, even though it was rather short, and I've been traveling all over the US. Finally I'm back in Ghana. I would like to make just a few remarks, and remarks along the lines of first, what is the situation that we find ourselves in Africa? Talk a little bit about the role of engineering, and zone in on what can African engineering practitioners do. And then I'd like to conclude by talking about how can Wfeo, support the engineering practitioners in Africa, to achieve what we want. First, it is well known that Africa is living in a paradox where we have a lot of wealth and yet we have a lot of poverty at the same time. We've got all these minerals, yet we have not developed the capacity to be able to exploit all of these minerals. And in fact, on top of all of this, Africa has the youngest population among all the continents, and yet we have a lot of unemployed youth. And indeed, half of the region's population is under 25 years of age. And yet the highest percentage of unemployment, occurs in Africa. And interestingly, we also find that the continent accounts for only about 3% of the global trade. So this is the picture that we find. Now, on top of all of this, we all recognize that engineering development is essentially about engineering. And no nation ever developed without engineering. And I believe past President Gonke talked about, when you look at the developed North, basically the difference is the fact that they exploit engineering. And as a matter of fact, what we find, for example, in the area of food, and agriculture, while only 5% of the people are employed in agriculture in the developed world, and they produce a lot, and even export a whole lot to us. About 70% of the people in the undeveloped world is employed in agriculture, and yet we don't produce, enough food to be able to feed ourselves. And the difference is really about engineering, plain and simple. And in fact, what we recognize is that even things which on the surface appear not to be about engineering, for example, really, there's been a lot of talk about getting vaccines for mosquitoes, the malaria and so on. But in reality, it is about drainage. If we get good drainage, we don't have standing water for mosquitoes and so on, and that it is really more engineering than medicine. So the whole point about it is that we need to deploy engineering, as much as possible. And this is part of the reason, in fact, it's a main driver for the Wfeo, the Federation of African Engineering Organization, Wfeo, to start mobilizing the African engineering population to try to bring focus to the development problems of Africa. And Wfeo seeks to promote and advance the science and practice of engineering, for the benefit of the whole society. So how do we mobilize ourselves and make sure that indeed we are, getting the best out of the engineering, effort? And there are a number of things that we need to do. First, obviously, if engineering is to have its full impact on society, society must have confidence in engineering. And this is where ethics become very important. Ethics and professional conduct. If we don't execute well, it doesn't matter what we do. Society is not going to have, a lot of confidence in the engineering, practitioners. So I believe there are a few things that we need to look at. First, mobilize engineering resources. Number two, maintain professional standards. Number three, provide civic service. And number four, promote and recognize excellence in the profession. So these are the areas that the African engineering community, led by Wfeo, need to be focusing on. Let me say a little bit about each of these. In terms of mobilizing engineering capacity, basically what we are talking about is that we need to make sure that it doesn't matter where our engineering resources are across the continent. Bring engineering practitioners from the different nations into a force. And also the diasporan engineering community, the African diasporan engineering community needs to be brought in, to help. And this is what I call, we need to essentially transform our individual excellence to what I call the group excellence. Because on the individual level, we do very, very well, but the challenge is how do we make sure that we mobilize all of this at the continental level. We also need to train the younger ones. We need to make engineering the profession of choice for Africa. And the young minds need to be motivated and inspired so that all these young people will want to do engineering. And in particular, the girl child. As a matter of fact, you can't ignore the girl child, because basically what you're saying is that you want to dispense with 50% of your human capital. You can't succeed, with that. So we need special effort to get the girl child very interested in engineering. Also, engineering is really a journey, and we need to put in training. And a number of the speakers have already, talked about, excuse me. A number of the speakers have already, talked about capacity building. So capacity building is a major issue for the engineering in, Africa. And we need, industrial experience. We need, specific skills, and we also need to make sure that our professional associations, our engineering organizations are all skilled and become home for training our people, home for guiding, our engineering, practitioners. Number three, we need to maintain professional standards. Poor workmanship and so on. All of these things don't help in terms of building confidence in the engineering. Now, a number of standards have been developed. So again, we need to develop standards across the continent, so that engineering in Ghana is not very different from engineering in Nigeria or in Kenya and so on. Then we also need to provide civic service. We need to advise our governments, and then we need to make sure that the public sees the role of engineering in everything that we do. We need to promote the welfare of society. Very importantly, engineering has become a much stronger voice and then be an active participant in the development of our nations. And I believe that when you look at a country like China, most of their leaders, have engineering background. And there is no wonder why they have made the kind of fast progress that we are seeing, in China. So again, in our part of the world, we need to mobilize ourselves so that we have many more engineering practitioners across the different governance, levels. We need engineering practitioners at the local level, at the district level, at the regional level, and at the continental level. In fact, we need to push so that the typical leader in Africa is an engineering practitioner and not a lawyer. We have too many of these lawyers, and frankly, we need to begin to change the model of that. So with all of that, and finally, we also need to promote the recognition of excellence. We need to bring, those who are performing, and particularly in the area of agriculture, which is the mainstay of many of our economies. We need to push very hard to make sure that engineering becomes a major, factor in agriculture. So these four areas fundamentally are the areas that we are going to need the support of the Wfeo, programs, projects, and so on, which will help us in, the four areas that I have, outlined. And really what we are saying is that we need, to have a promotion of mobilizing the engineering resources in Africa. We need to maintain professional standards. We need to provide civil service, and we need to promote and recognize excellence. And if the Wfeo can have, programs to support us in these areas, then I think engineering will make a big difference on the continent of Africa at the national level and at the continental level. And we've been talking about the African free trade the continental free trade area. You cannot trade effectively if you are not producing, and you cannot produce if you don't have engineering. Again, so these are the areas that I believe we need to drive for. So let me pause here and then probably join in the general discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kwame Boaki. We go to the next presenter.
President of Wfeo, President of FAO, sorry. Engineer Papayas Kazawadi, please. You have the floor.
Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very grateful to participate on this webinar. And I thank all the previous speakers in connection to their presentations. And in connection to the last speaker, Dr. Boache, Wfeo is involved in engaging different institutions to increase the collaboration and reduce the fragmentation and the disconnect that has characterized the continent over the several decades. Federation of Africa Engineering Organization believes in collaboration, and this is the main reason it is a member of the World Federation of Engineering Institutions, and it is increasing to mobilize other African countries that have not become members of the Federation in pursuit of bringing the unity of ideas, unity of experience, and unity in sharing the knowledge for the development of the continent. This year alone, the Federation of Africa Engineering Organization, for the first time, have managed to engage the African Union, and whereby the African Union has invited the Federation of Africa Engineering Organization to participate in the high-level retreat to discuss the Africa 2063 agenda for development. And this meeting will bring together the ministers of foreign affairs and ministers of finance. And we believe that it is the starting point to mitigate or to bridge the gap that has been existing between the engineering institutions and the policy makers at the continental level. Last August, the Federation of Africa Engineering Organization signed the Memorandum of Understanding with the Africa Standardization Organization in pursuit of development and dissemination of African standards that will pave a way for the continental free trade area doing business between citizens of different countries. And already the engagement in final stages with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in signing the Memorandum of Understanding and collaboration for the same issues, because we believe the engineers in Africa are the ones who understand the challenges and can develop the solution connected to the mobility of engineers, to the education of engineers, and to the best practice in the development of the highly needed infrastructure on the continent. Again, we have been able to collaborate with the Association of Development of Education in Africa, which is an intergovernmental organization hosted within the Africa Development Bank. And we are also discussing areas of collaboration, more especially in the development of the engineering education policy and professional practice accreditation manual. This will be discussed in deep in the upcoming Africa Engineering Week in Pretoria, where all these stakeholders, namely African Union, Africa Continental Free Trade Area, African Development Bank, Association for Development of Education in Africa, and Africa Standardization Organization, all of them will be together to discuss and define the appropriate framework of collaboration. So I do feel that so far, where the Federation is positioning itself on the continent is very much encouraging, and it requires the support of the World Federation of Engineering Organization to continue and enhance the collaboration in making sure that these initiatives are properly achieved. Without taking much of your time, I thank you, and I thank the Nigeria Society of Engineering Organization for hosting this webinar. Thank you all.
All right, thank you very much, Papayas, for that presentation. We are going to be going to the next segment, which is going to be contributions by our contributors. We have about 7 of them who are going to be making brief contributions, 3 minutes contributions to what the speakers have presented. May I invite Engineer Valerie Agbaraba to introduce our contributors so we can go straight to the contributions.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ben. We have, just like you said, we have 7 contributors, and because we want to save time, I'll just be calling them out. There's no need for introduction. Our first contributor is Engineer Kasim Ali, a fellow of Nigerian Society of Engineers, MNI, and the National Honor recipient. He's a past president of NSC and COREN. So I'll just call you, sir, to please take the floor. He will be closely followed by Engineer Seng Chuan Tan, Vice President of the Wfeo, and followed by Engineer Ashok Basa, also another Vice President of Wfeo. Please, we just come up after the first contributor. There will be no need to call you again because we want to save your time so that we can close at the exact time. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to thank the President of the WFEU for his opening remarks, and then to thank Marlene Donkey and those who have spoken. The theme we're looking at is WFEU supporting engineering in Africa. And we've spoken, Donkey talked about the platforms that WFEU provides for career and leadership development in engineering, and then that African member nations and other individuals within the nations can also gain, and that is very commendable. I want to take on Marlene's contribution a bit. You know, he provides some data, and not only on Southern Africa, and I know she went to Ghana. So what happened to other parts of Africa? What data do you have on them, or you didn't bother to do a study? Secondly, you also did intervention in terms of mentoring in Mauritius, Kenya, and Ghana. And I was just wondering, while that couldn't have been done in a structured way, for instance, since you knew very well, because I was talking with you over time about what we're doing in Nigeria to get into IEA. So why couldn't you have engaged Nigeria, for instance, so that it will be some like homegrown solution to this? Because our intention in Nigeria was that if we can get into the we're going to also get all African countries that are interested to go in, because we would have created a path for them to follow. I mean, growing it locally would be a lot more effective, in my opinion. Then finally, I want to say WFEU has given us a lot of opportunities, but also WFEU in some way has also denied us a lot of opportunities. Because, for instance, in the we're not in the minority. Africa has about 25 member nations. And if my memory is correct, I think that is currently the highest number of member nations from any bloc. So we are not really in the minority. And the MBC coming in now should be an opportunity for us to really explore. So I think FAO needs to get its act a bit more together. We should remember where we are coming from. We should remember that we had an FAO that failed, and then there was a competing organization called AF that was championed by Martin, sponsored by South Africa, that was causing disruption, which we had to tackle in India in 2007. And thereafter, when Adel came in, we requested Adel to, as president of WFEU, to help us structure engineering in Africa. That is how we had the first conference in Egypt. The second one could not hold because there were internal disagreements in Africa. But today, FAO is there. But I have a problem. We must not fear. We must not work for individual preservation. When we preserve ourselves, we create problems, because we're talking about a whole large continent that has so many countries that have many diverse interests. For instance, if I'm thinking about, oh, what position will I hold next? It will not help me to put the public interest at the forefront. And I say this because I see today you have some people holding double offices in the WF. You can't be FAO president and you're also chair of a committee in WFU. All those kind of things, for me, they seem to be like for self-preservation, and they will not help Africa to grow. Let's get serious. Let's sit down really. Let's be rational and just think of how to develop engineering in Africa, not about ourselves. That way we'll make progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer.
Next presenter.
Yeah. Engineer Tan, please. Can we have Engineer Ashok make his contribution?
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Excellencies. At the outset, I thank the International Affairs Committee of the Nigerian Society of Engineers for giving me an opportunity to be a part of a very important and interesting discussion on WFO promoting engineers in Africa, achievement and way forward. Very recently, during 9th and 10th September, G20 summit, which is considered as the grouping of the most powerful nations in the world, was conducted in New Delhi, chaired by the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. In that meeting, emphasis was given to lay the foundation of a new world order that would be far more inclusive, harmonious, and compassionate. It is in this context, the presence of Africa is very, very important. It's a matter of great pride for Africa that African Union has been given a permanent seat in G20. Now it will be called a G21, based on the proposal mooted by India, which was subsequently unanimously agreed by all the rest of the members during the recently concluded G20 summit held in New Delhi. In fact, history was created when Prime Minister Modi invited Mr. Azali Assouming, the chairperson of the African Union, to occupy a seat in the G20 summit on 9th September morning. This clearly reflects how much important Africa is for the overall and inclusive global developmental agenda of the world. And in this context, we in WFO are fortunate that we are having very strong relationship with Africa as a continent. True, we are promoting engineering in Africa, but to my mind, there are certain things which exist and certain things which in my mind should be added. You know, the obvious things is the capacity building, including the skill development. That is the most important, essential factor for any developmental activities in any country. Second is women engineering. Women engineers, the number have to be increased. You know, for example, I will give an example. In India, 30% of the engineering seats are reserved for the women. So that way we are getting a lot of women engineers in the country now. Another is the digitally strong world. Gentlemen, now if we are not digitally strong, then we cannot improve ourselves, any information, anything. It has to be digitized, and we have to be a part of digitally strong world. And the most important to my mind, because I am a lover of disaster risk management committee, disaster risk elements has to be embedded into the very concept of engineering planning of any country. Particularly, it is important for the underdeveloped and developing countries because one simple disaster takes away so much of money that for next decade, the country cannot sustain itself. So therefore, it is better to get oneself, try to prevent these activities rather than be a part of this distraction. Thank you very much. I think because of the paucity of time, I should limit my presentation. But once again, thank you all for giving me a great opportunity. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker. Okay. Tessie,
Director,
are you
I
trying
think
to
we should
share something?
recognize the presence of the NSC president. I see he's online. Mr. President, we recognize you and we apologize for having noticed that since you came in. I knew you were in transit this morning. Mr. President, can we see your face, please? Thank you for giving us this platform to have this meeting. Thank you. Can we take the presentation from Engineer Martins Manuel? Mr. President, you have one word to say. Thank you. Just say something to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. I thank you very much for accepting to attend this meeting, especially the president of Wfeo, the past presidents. They took their time to make all the presentations. Ashok, all of us, thank you very much. You are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please, can you play the recorded contribution from Engineer Martins Manuel? Volume, please. Maybe while you sort out the volume, can we have Engineer Rumuli speak to us? We can't have the volume of this while you sort it out. Engineer Rumuli, can we have you your contribution? Thank you.
Yeah, and you think it's me? Are you sure? Yeah, it's because I was told only 3 minutes talking. Okay. Can I say?
Wfeo.
Yeah, can you confirm? I give 3 minutes, just my opinion.
Yes, we can hear you.
We look into
you don't hear
the
me.
Africa region now.
Teresa, please remove the presentation for Martin. When you get the volume, you come in after Rumeli. Thank you. Let's have Rumeli speak to us.
Okay. I only
Rumeli, you have the floor. Continue.
Okay. May I speak? Okay. And
yes,
I've been an electrical engineer for more than 40 years, right? It's so many years, always contact with African friends. Even this March, I've been to the Nigeria office in the United Nations. I attend the Nigeria women activities. I talked with the Minister of the Women. I just very impressive. I think we don't, please not take just no, Africa, some several countries, like they are developed, they are, so, low, and no, they have the very good opinion, actually. And they have, the innovative ideas. What they need opportunities. How we engineer organizations, we can give opportunities. Yeah, I just say, yes, our education is good. From last 2 years, I got totally 5 students. The last one not finished the TOEFL exam yet, to get to China but not only that, not everyone can get that education. But my suggestion is, we need electricity, we need energy. How can we just started? We start the energy project in Africa, some region, some countries, just a limited region. And we collected the foundation, financial support, the technology, some engineers, we give the people training, and the local people, it's very young people, they will have motivation. If without opportunity, they don't, like to learn too much. They give them opportunity, the professional, they give them opportunity to promote their life value, because they make contribution to the world, to SDGs. And I think just my ideas to start some engineering project, renewable energy, electricity, and to make a real contribution. And the last one is, we have lots of confidence. I think, can we change some style in the future, give more opportunities to the audience for them to discussion, not only speakers, photos, something like that, because everyone need have the recognition. Everyone, they need some dignity, something. And African people, they're normal like other countries people. Okay, they just opportunity to show their talent, right? Okay.
Thank you, Rume, for your contribution. Can we have this video again with the volume? Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank the Nigerian Society of Engineers, represented by the president, my brother Wfeo, and also the convener of this meeting, and the chairperson of the advisory committee of our president-elect. I would like really to appreciate this initiative and would like to commence by getting straight into this very important topic. I will also acknowledge the president of the Wfeo, Professor Vieira. I will acknowledge the past President Gonke, my brother, our mentor, sister, and friend, Malin Kanga, for gracing this occasion. And most of all, I would like to give all kudos to the president-elect of the Zimbabwe, of the Wfeo, presentation. We look into the Africa region now, trends and global challenges that we face, to premise where Wfeo can help and assist, work with Africa. We then are going to go into the subject matter, which is basically an overview of the Wfeo activities in Africa, the alignment of Wfeo, and 5 strategic plans so that we can have a common intent, and also the harmonization of standards, not only engineering education, but also global infrastructure standards. I will then recommend, because of the limited time, and conclude. Basically, engineering a better Africa requires us to put all our heads together and have a serious mindset transformation. And to do this, the Wfeo has an agreement with the Africa Union Commission through the HR Science and Technology Department based in Abuja. And this agreement opens a lot of gateways for us to work with governments, to work with the UN system, to work with other development actors. And we would like to align this to our networking and the influence that we want Africa to have, and also how we want to work with the Wfeo. Again, we believe in skills because we have a young population, which is a big dividend. Going further, I will take you back to the UNESCO engineering report where Yashin and myself did the chapter on the African regional trends. And I would like to, first of all, bring your attention to the statistics that close to 60 million Africans could be pushed into poverty because of food insecurity, which basically calls for a lot of agricultural engineering solutions and other departments like financing. Again, 110 million African children and youth are already out of school because of fragility in healthcare and other systems. It is also predicted that economic activity, lockdowns during COVID will cause further meltdown. Again, these global challenges are not good for Africa. We have lack of engineering data. We need Wfeo and Wfeo to do a lot of studies so that we can have stats, open data science. We also have low uptake of engineering education by young people, especially females and young girls. Again, obsolete engineering curricula, we need to be worked at. We also look at giving opportunities to our engineers. Going further, the best intervention is through policy mechanisms, and which policies that look at strategies, technologies, and measures for us to work together. Again, we need to ask these hard questions, three of which are so difficult, but we need to ask these questions in order to premise our relationship with Wfeo and other development partners. How can digital transformation assist us? What solution mechanism that can give us innovative green financing? Again, there are so many other challenges which I've outlined already, some of which are generic, poor infrastructure, lack of standards, harmonization. So let us look at this and find out how best we can improve the engineering environment in Africa. Again, the per capita, that is the number per thousand per engineer, is very low, with some figures being very low in countries like Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania, my own country, Zimbabwe, where we really need to work hard to improve the number of engineers per capita. Again, having said that, I'll take the next part of my presentation to look back at the relationship between the Wfeo and the activities that we have done in Africa. I'm happy to say Africa has been very active, especially since 2011, when we have managed to chair 3 key committees, that of anti-corruption, that of capacity building, and that of women in engineering. And also we are chairing a working group in Wfeo. We now have a president-elect. We are excited about that prospect. We also have other members in the Executive Council of Wfeo, Matalanga from Kenya, and my friend from DR Congo. Again, this is a great achievement, a great feat for Africa. I pass again our congratulations to my dear friend, dear brother, Mustafa, for representing us well as the next president of Wfeo. We wish him well. And again, I thank Jose for working very well with Mustafa, and also for coming to Africa now and again to work with us via webinars, via a lot of online activities. One key takeaway is Africa Engineering Week. And this week was born out of the Capacity Building Committee in Africa. And through their proposal, which was adopted by the board, a MO was developed with UNESCO. And this MO then made an agreement, gave birth to an agreement between the FAO and the WFEO, where the Capacity Building Committee will chair the steering committee of the Africa Engineering Week, and that steering committee will compose of UNESCO, other STCs from Africa at Wfeo, other PICs, as well as the hosts and many stakeholders, and the FAO president. It is very important that so far the Engineering Week has been the flagship event between UNESCO and WFEO and FAO. It has been held in 9 different countries so far, starting from South Africa to Zimbabwe to Zambia to the to to Ghana, all the way to Ethiopia, Kenya, and now we're going back to South Africa. It is a great achievement, Mr. Convener say, and I would like to thank all the parties. Now going further to the collaboration framework, I think there is need for the alignment of the strategic goals of Wfeo in Africa and the strategic goals of FAO in Africa. Part of the strategic goals are the visibility of engineering, which of course the Africa Engineering Week can serve, and many other conferences. The other one will be networking with policy, as well as looking into ways in which the FEO and the WFEO can look at strategic intertwinement between the two organizations. I recommend the focus on the SDGs, which I think is our mantra to achieve the Africa we want. Going further, there is now an urgent need to create a FAO, Wfeo, IEA, UNESCO, ADIA. ADIA is the Association for Development of Education in Africa, which is under the FAO, Africa Development Bank. With this association, we hope to a lot of projects that will go into harmonization of engineering standards in Africa, as well as looking at a scaling up of infrastructure report card that we started under the FAO. Harmonization is very, very important for us, and we really need to take note of how best we can bridge the innovative gap or divide, and how we can use the engineering knowledge and also the SDGs to find solutions to create the Africa we want. Going further, Africa needs to catch up. And like I said from the beginning, we really require a scenario where we need to look into the Africa we want in the SDGs. Engineering has solutions to all of them. I would also encourage the partnership to look at diversity and inclusivity, as well as leaving nobody behind. And in conclusion, let's look at how we can meet the SDGs by 2030 and beyond, and how we can harmonize our education system and how we can work together to create a common standard for the Africa we want. In conclusion, once again, I will not leave behind our motto as Africans. We think in coming together, working together for the good of all Africans. And always, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, let's go together. I thank you very much. And again, I call for a mindset transformation for our relationship, for no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Martins. I'm told Engineer Tan is at this meeting. Can we have your contribution, please? Engineer Tan from Singapore, thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I didn't know my turn is so fast. So I would share something in terms of climate change, especially on the engineering educations into the climate change. So let me share one of my slides. Sorry, just give me a minute. Sorry, do you see my screen?
Yes, yes, we see your screen.
Which screen? You're seeing the climate change screen, right?
Yes, Engineer Tan, you have 3 minutes for your presentation, please.
Okay.
Thank you. We can see your screen.
Okay, so let me enlarge it. I'm so sorry for the delay. And display. Stop. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the climate change and decarbonization strategy, and this is where globally what we are facing. And that is also the engineering educations, and in Asia as well as in Africa, the same thing will happen, and we are very similar in terms of our education level, our economy, all depends on this, right? So I'm talking about the climate risk. The climate risk, based on this, the global risk reports. Of course, at the moment we are talking about the cost of living because of the inflations but that is more on the short term. But on the long term, we're looking at the failure of mitigation measure on climate change, and especially on referring to the developing country, whether it's in Asia or it's in Africa. We are more focused on economic developments, and that is one of the track that we probably do not have much knowledge about how to mitigate the climate risk. And this is where I would think that WFEO, the STC will be able to see how to be more focused in terms of mitigating the climate risk. All right. This is just a kind of scenario when they talk about sea level rise, when they talk about at 2 degrees C or even 5 degrees C, what is going to happen? And the impact actually is very great. Taking Singapore as a small country, we are already started to look into some of the climate risks we have, and we are at the moment also strengthening capacity building in terms of how to bring the knowledge to mitigate. And we have already started the coastal protection because of the sea level rise. We're expecting at the moment we just increase 1 meter, but I think the years to come, the risk level is going to be much higher. And you know, Singapore is not we don't produce, we don't have agriculture, we don't produce food, so we have to import. But now the strategy, we have made changes to say, how can we use the technology to grow our own food at least at a 30%, and this is one of the targets. So we can't depend a lot from other country, but we're going to be self-sufficient. And how to be self-sufficient? Technology is one way that we are able to overcome. Right? Then we talk about the climate initiative and decarbonization. And this just to give you a history of the climate action is not just only happen today, but along in 1979, it's already been discussed, but because it's not affecting us, so most of us are not be aware of, right? So only when the concern, now we have more natural disaster, then we have a concern that, okay, what happened? Then we start to realize that the risk is very high and it's going to affect us in our living conditions. So this year COP28 is in Dubai, which is very important, and I would say all engineers should look into that in terms of how do we mitigate the climate change. And if you look at the curve over here, I won't elaborate too much, but if we achieve 1.5 at the blue line, is we probably will be okay, and by 2050. But if we are doing nothing, the red line is going to impact us a lot on that, right? So at the moment, I think from all the STC in WFEO are working towards that. In fact, a few number of years back, we already embarked into that, but now we're getting more urgent to get into the climate change. So climate change can have many effects. If you look at last year in the COP, everybody declared 2050 is my net zero, but how? You know, so problem and engineers are very important to say this is how we're going to decarbonize. The energy is one of the main culprits. So how to raise the energy efficiency, how to apply technology into the into our work, right? And of course, regulator is also very important. Financial institutions play a very crucial role to look at if you want the finance, you better go for a green finance. Otherwise, you will not get the money for your business. And for engineers, technology very important. So those are the area we need to build capacity, right? And in Singapore, of course, we do have a plan to say how do we decarbonize, what is our commitment, and we are working towards that. So one of the important factor, just take Singapore as an example, we implement carbon tax in 2019, and this initially we only have $5, but when it comes to 2030, it's going to be many times. We're going to charge $80 per ton of CO2 equivalent, so that you can see the impact to the business. And business at the moment, they have to get into the whole journey as quick as possible, right? And that is the effect on what we're going to do. And in fact, globally, the carbon pricing is much more than that, right? So at the moment, probably about 75 ton, and $75 per ton, and we're only charging $5 per ton. That is a big gap. But we have to take care of the transitions for business to transition from the low carbon economy to the high carbon economy. So the business implications from, as I say, from the high carbon economy to the low carbon economy, and engineers play a very important role, and the capacity building even more important, because the knowledge, if you know that a lot are from Europe, a lot are from US, but not so much on Africa or Asia. So in terms of capacity building, WFEO will be able, they will have a lot to share, right? And we are talking about, it is not just only this year I'm going to do that, but you need to have a roadmap. So how to develop a roadmap? And this is something on our capacity building, we should be able to share some of the example, or share some of the practices within the bigger community. Yeah, so these are some of the incentive where the government has to do, because you have to do, beside the stake, you're going to charge people for more, you're going to have a carrot as well. So whatever carbon tax we collected, we share with the industry. We incentivize the industry for their efforts in decarbonization journey. And yeah, these are some of the work we are doing, is looking at incentivize to verify the carbon, so that we have a system in terms of how we are going to verify based on the ISO 14064, and there's a methodology over there, and this is an international standard. So I would think that some of this sharing session will be able to conduct in the near future. And when we talk about carbon neutrality, net zero, what is a net zero? What is carbon neutrality? So those are the terminology we need to understand before we can embark into it. And then SBTI, science-based target. Okay, science-based target, very important, because scientists has put in their efforts to look into how much carbon can you reduce in certain industries. So something like how to analyze the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Those are the work. And okay, so that is my 2 minutes presentations, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Tan. Sorry, please go ahead. Just call on Engineer Matalanga so that we can take questions. Thank you.
Okay, we take Engineer Matalanga. Nathaniel.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much, the organizers. I hope I am clear. I'd just like to start by saying that the Institution of Engineers of Kenya is a proud member of the World Federation of Engineering Organization. We've taken seriously the activities of engineering in Kenya, and we support engineering activities in the region, being members of the East Africa Federation of Engineering Organization, and one of the former presidents of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya is actually the current president of Wfeo. And also one of our former presidents is also a former president of the Federation of Africa Engineering Organizations. We participate also actively on the World Council of Civil Engineers. And of course, we are national members of the World Federation of Engineering Organization. And our regulatory body, Engineers Board of Kenya, is an associate member of Wfeo. We participate actively, and we've also hosted one of the premier activities of Wfeo. The 5th Africa Engineering Week was held in Kenya in 2018. We also participated in the Infrastructure Record Card report. So we are looking forward for the support of Wfeo to Africa, so that Africa is able to progress quickly to be able to take its rightful place. Because we believe we have the resources, we have the capability. We just need a bit of support in terms of capacity building, as already has been observed. We need the help of Wfeo and these international organizations to lobby our governments to help us persuade them that they need the involvement of engineers in infrastructure development. We're very excited recently in Taiwan in June this year when our big brother Nigeria, through the help of the international community, was accepted as an associate member of the Washington Accord. And we believe with the support of Wfeo, our regulatory body engineers board of Kenya, we're trying very hard. With your support, you'll be able to be accepted as an associate member in June in the next meeting of the International Engineering Alliance members that will be held in India. We need to have a roadmap of how to understand activities in Africa, how African countries, how engineering in Africa is practiced, so that we need to get a framework of how these countries can be helped to become and join the International Engineering Alliance. I'm very excited. My brother Teng is here. In Kenya, we are struggling with the issue of housing, and I know Singapore has a very good development, very serious housing development board, and we are willing to learn, bring experts so that they help our government improve to be able to grow the country housing. Our role in Kenya is trying to take Kenya to the world and also bring the world to Kenya. And by extension, we take Africa to the world and bring Africa to bring the world to Africa. I'm excited to see a possible politician, possible leader, possible president for Ghana in the name of Kwame Angyepong attending this webinar today. And I'm very excited that we have engineers in Africa who are able to give the leadership, but we need the support of Wfeo in telling our leaders wherever they can, wherever interact with them, that please listen to engineers in your country. They have their roadmap to development. In conclusion, we are aware that Africa has a huge resources. There is no excuse for us to remain behind in the sustainable development goal. All we need is a little help and assistance from international organizations like Wfeo to make Africa take its rightful place. I really thank the organizers for this opportunity, congratulate the president-elect of Wfeo for having this. I thank very much the participation of all the former presidents of Wfeo, the current president, Jose Vieira, for taking time to be with us. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. I think with this, the other two contributors have not joined. We have to move on to questions before we come to the remarks by the president-elect and also the chairman of the International Affairs Committee. I think we open the floor, then others will come in. If you have a question, please, you kindly click on the reaction button and then click on raise hand.
Anya Lopez want to ask a question. Maybe you could press Anya Lopez.
I am seeing Febi Mbulo. But before we go to that, sir, let me quickly, when Marion was talking, she talked about most of the things WFEO was doing in terms of creating international platform for standards, and talked about international alliance. My first question to her is, what is the role of WFEO in ensuring the actualization of these among member countries? And also, what are the challenges you face? Then the second question, which I pointed out, is for Gonki, who also talked about how WFEO is uniting nations. I want to know the strategies they have adopted or their strategic plan on the actualization of that. And the final one from my own side, Buaki talked about ethics and trust, that their engineers need to build trust through ethics. And the question is, how can we entrench ethics in the profession to build this trust? And how can we also, he talked about that we have individual resources, but we have not been able to harness these individual resources to become a continental resource. Then the question is, how can we mobilize these individual resources towards actualization of sustainable continental resource? These are the questions from my own side to Marlin, Gonki, and the Buaki. Then we take questions from the floor. Thank you. I think we start with Marlin.
Thank you, Ben, very much for that question. And I would like to respond to say that we have in Wfeo, we have a strategic plan to really engage all our members, but with particularly in Africa. And we have engaged with the International Engineering Alliance. We have a MOU with them, which we've had since 2015, and we reactivated that in 2019. And I think we're reactivating again for another 4 years this year, 2023. And through this alliance, the International Engineering Alliance, they have the governance. They are responsible for the International Engineering Education Benchmark. And so it's very important that the engineering education standards in Africa are raised to that international level. And for this purpose, we established a mentoring project that commenced in November 2019 in Melbourne, where all interested African nations were invited to attend, including Nigeria. We started with 3 projects, one in Kenya in the east, Ghana in the west, and Mauritius in the south. The aim being to have a hub and spoke model, basically to train the trainer, if you like, to make these nations hubs that would then train other nations. And it was simply those that came forward first with their proposals, and which were well advanced in going forward. Corin was already working with and we, WFEO, made very great progress, and I'm pleased to hear that Kenya also is going to apply next year, because we developed a systematic process to bring nations up to standard. And the only reason we haven't done more is lack of resources within WFEO. We need funding for this. This actually costs millions of dollars, but we actually did it at no cost at volunteers. And the WFEO Committee for Education and Engineering did all the secretariat work at no cost to WFEO to support these 3 very important projects. And we wish we could do more, and if we have funding, we will certainly do so. So, so this is very, an action which not only has vision, but also has action with impact. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think we go to Gonki to respond to the other question.
Gonki has left. Gonki has left.
Okay, Buaki, Kwame Buaki.
Yes, thank you for, I think one of my dilemmas, quite frankly, is that we talk a lot about, getting into the Washington Accord and so on. And I would like to see some emphasis on the African Accord, so that we develop, across Africa, some, because frankly, I am in Ghana, and it's much more important for me to be able to have harmonization with Nigeria, Kenya, and so on. And I don't believe we need to go to Washington to come back to Africa. But I think it would be important for us to undertake, such an activity, and that will help move, African engineering, forward. Yeah. So that's my contribution.
All right. We have two people that have raised their hands. Febi Mbolo. Okay, Febi Mbolo, can you make your contribution or ask your question? Then we come to Ania Lopez.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Febi Mbulo from Zambia. Yes, my question is goes to past President Kanga. I don't know the correct pronunciation of the name. Yes, so she talked about where WFEO has an academy for graduates like us who just completed school, or rather completed doing the engineering program from the university. I just want to find out, how can someone access this academy or the programs that are lined up under the academy? How can someone get access? Thank you so much.
May I respond, Ben?
Go on.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Febi. Basically, any individual that is a member of a WFEO national member can register on the site and access the content. And the address is wfeoacademy.com. So you can do it tonight if you like, today if you like. And there are a small number of courses, mainly at the moment for engineering educators and accreditation bodies, but we are soon going to also upload courses for qualified engineers for their professional development, such as yourself, in areas that are non-discipline, engineering discipline specific. So there are areas such as project management, leadership, ethics, etc. So this will come in the next 6 months, and if you can access those quite freely. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now we take on Ania Lopez. Ania, please, can you unmute your mic and make it okay?
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ania Lopez, Executive Council Wfeo, represent Italy. I am very happy to participate because in this call I have a lot of friends. It's a good opportunity to talk about West Africa. I would like to have a question, but I think a very important question, because in 2050, UNESCO declared that Africa will double its inhabitants, which means that 1 in 4 inhabitants of the planet will be Africa. This information is very important, because my question is who will Wfeo face this challenge, knowing that the African continent will need more infrastructure, energy, technology, innovation, and food? Probably with greater integration between other regions? This is my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, I can't see any other hand.
Ben, can I answer?
Okay. All right.
Well, as we know, Africa will experience in the next decades a very huge demographic growth, and the continent will face maybe a new problem, that is a lot of young people. So maybe will be the continent, the youngest continent in Earth. So the governments will face
very important movement for young people to access to the education, to the university, to jobs, and so on. So I think that we, as WFEO, we are very aware about this, but of course we have not the power to change the things. The power will be with the African governments. And I see that engineering and engineering education can be a very crucial point for this facing of new problems. We have not only young people without school, we have not so many people, so many young people in the universities and also in the technical and scientific courses. And even in the adult population, we have a very high illiteracy on science and technology. So I think that we have a very, very interesting and very challenging future for the African continent, the African people. And I think that our profession as engineers, we have also a very important role to have in this point. I think I have been in a seminar with UNESCO and one African country governments, and I see that this is the key point: education, 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 and engineering education, girls and boys, are very important to face the new challenges that the African continent will face in the next decades. That's my opinion.
All right, thank you very much, sir. I thought I saw Mohammed. Okay, he has raised down his hand. Okay,
Engineer Ben, we have questions in the chat group. Maybe you might want to take one or two there.
Okay.
Chairman, sir.
Okay, Mohammed Adamu, please, can you ask
All
your
right.
question?
All right, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mohammed Adamu. I'm actually in Ghana, but a Nigerian. My question, it's based on experience and the opportunity that WAFO has provided, having had this opportunity for me to participate at this particular conference. Now, this is the question. I have worked as an engineer in 7 African countries for an organization, an international organization. And during the working experience in Africa, I realized that African engineers, as much as we are and well involved, we don't take full opportunity, or there's no protection for Africans in engineering. For instance, when you get, I was just very lucky, and I know I had good people that could do as good as I could, who would have performed very well at international level. But we don't see them get this opportunity or protected. So what would WAFO do for African professional engineers to participate in engineering industries and sector at the highest level as much as they can show competence and ability? This is my question. Thank you.
Okay. We will. Okay, can we have a response so that we can take maybe 1 or 2 other questions from the chat box? Adamu,
well, maybe I can respond to.
Okay, sir. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think what Adamu is saying, in a way, there's a lot of sense in it, but in a way, you have to be more specific. Are you talking of organizations that are owned by the various governments in Africa, or organizations that are multinational organizations? because wherever you are, number one, before you practice as an engineer, you have to have the registration as an engineer in that country. In your case, you are a Nigerian. I know you must have the registration with the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, and probably that is the basis for which you were taken by that organization. On the other hand, I know that I mean, we have challenge as engineering institution, and that is actually one of the basic reasons why these engineering institutions are formed. That is the advocacy to the leadership of our individual countries to assure them that our own engineers in Africa, in Nigeria, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe, in Malawi are also competent to undertake any engineering job in the country. That notwithstanding, we are still aware of the fact that in a lot of cases we need the expertise of some other engineers outside the shores of Africa. So this advocacy is what Nigerian Society of Engineers is doing, and is what the Federation of African Engineering Organization is doing, as well as the World Federation of Engineering Organization. So it's a two-way approach. Number one, the advocacy to our governments. Number two, we as engineering practitioners also, we have to reach out to whatever organization we lay our hands on to avail ourselves of our services and our expertise. But should there be any challenge by any of the engineers, he can also, of course, run down to the engineering institution in that country. Probably, that particular engineering institution could assist him or guide him further. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We take Engineer Rabiu Haruna sent a question on the chat. The question is, how could WFEO support African continent in addressing unemployment, particularly in the Southern Sahara? That is from Engineer Rabiu Haruna. And after that, we come to the participants. I can see Engineer Yetunde Holloway. She raised her hand for question. Is there any of the speakers that can respond to that before we take Engineer Holloway?
Well, I think I don't know, with the permission of Joseph Vera, maybe I can respond to that also. You see, WFEO is a global organization comprising engineers from all countries, and it is the responsibility of the member countries to address issues in their locality, while WFEO can give some guidance, can give some framework. But WFEO, from wherever they are, they cannot come to individual countries. But if there is an issue which in specifics, the national member organization would want the intervention of WFEO, they can as well write to WFEO in specific terms to request them, probably to guide them or to intervene in any issue the national member feels that the WFEO as an organization can intervene. Otherwise, it is the responsibility of the national member organizations, being a member of WFEO and getting a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and exposure through the WFEO membership, to address such issues or such problems in their localities.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. We take Yetunde Holloway.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yetunde Holloway. I'm the chair of the Women in Engineering Committee. My question is directed at Dr. Tan, Engineer Tan from Singapore, who talked about climate change and achieving net zero. So the question is that in terms of the race to net zero, how do African countries or how do African economies join that race genuinely, given that the majority of the emissions are coming from the West, the first world countries, and the emissions from Africa, and Africa is suffering from the from their own industrialization. And Africa needs to industrialize to even join Africa needs to industrialize to even join that race at all. So I want you to tell us how we can industrialize and at the same time join that net zero race. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think we will take the last question so that we can have responses for the 2 questions and then go to the next item in the program. Taiwo.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Taiwo Lanre from Nigeria. I don't know if it's a question or a comment. I believe one of the fundamental problems in Africa development is we need to revise our curriculum in the universities. The curriculum in the university is not tallying with the outside world. The curriculum is theory-based. We need to infuse it with technological and merge it with companies, because the reality is that Africa is not progressing in terms of engineering. We are backward, and we produce engineering graduates every year. So how do we match the industrial with the it's too theoretical. We need to infuse some practical into our engineering curriculum. That's the only way Africa can move forward in terms of technology.
All right. Okay, thank you very much for your comment. We take response to the question asked by Engineer Holloway, and then we go to the next item in our program.
All right, so maybe I will answer because I think she directed to me, right? So
okay.
In terms of the how Africa can get into this net zero, I think to the other questions, Taiwo's questions, it will be the same, because what WFEO can do, WFEO is the only world body, and all the countries are getting together. And a lot of things we are able to share. Only thing is we may not be having too much communications, right? So I think we can, among the continents between Africa, Asia, or Latin America, all the developing countries, we are able to share that. So in terms of climate change, there's a lot of things to understand, to learn for example, how the carbon is being emissions before we can talk about net zero, before we can talk about the benchmarking, what is the international standards. So I would think that's still coming back to capacity building. And when I talk about capacity building, it's not just only engineering education, but beside the university can do, the engineers who are already working, they have to gain the new knowledge. And Marlene has did up the WFEO Academy. We can put in more module into the WFEO Academy, and then all this new knowledge, it can be shared. So a lot of times in June, when we had the IEA meeting, by the way, I also involved in IEA a lot now. I'm the advisor for the benchmarking and mobility. So we are also trying to explore how engineers can gain knowledge in terms of certain international benchmarking. At the same time, we are also looking at how engineers can cross border to share their knowledge, and they're able to apply the knowledge from one country to another country. So this is something definitely we can discuss a bit more, and especially in terms of climate change, net zero, these are the very new area. In fact, when United Nations started this in 2016, if you remember, and now it's already 2023, and we are targeting at 2030. We only have another 7 years to go. So it is very urgent to say, how can we gain the knowledge? And I believe Wfeo is a good platform for knowledge exchange and learning and building the capacity, so that when you at your own country, you're able to influence the design, influence the infrastructure development, and that reduce the carbon emissions.
Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
Nathan. I'll send an email to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that response. And I think this is the much we can take for contributions and the questions and comments. On that note, we go to the next item in our program, which is the remarks by the President-elect of WFEO. Let me officially introduce him so that he can make his remarks. The President-elect is Engineer Mustafa Balarabe Shehu. Engineer Mustafa Balarabe Shehu is a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and a fellow of the Academy of Engineering. He was the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers from 2012 to 2013, and also served as the president of the Academy of Engineering, president of the Federation of African Engineering Organization. And also, by the special grace of God, he has been at the global level, where he has served the WFEO in different capacities. Before his election as the president-elect of the World Federation of Engineering Organization, he also served as the executive vice president of the body. And today, by the special grace of God, he is the president-elect WFEO. And we know that by October this year, by the grace of God, he will take over as the president of the Federation of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. It's my pleasure to invite for his remarks Engineer Mustafa Balarabe Shehu. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben Osi Oko. And of course, I want to thank the organizer of this program, my friend, Engineer Valerie Adbergba, who has put this very aptly. I want to, in a very special way, recognize and thank my president, Professor Joseph Vieira, and my sister, my mentor, and my good friend also, Dr. Malin Kanga, and my friends, Seng Chuan Tan, Ashok Basa, Anya Lopez, Nathaniel Matalanga, Gustav Nzeng, all of us at the Executive Council of the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. Actually, this is like, I mean, a roadmap you have drawn for me for my presidency. So I cherish all these presentations you have made, and I will please want this presentation sent to my email box, even though I have seen a lot of the participants also requesting for the presentation, because they are very rich in content, and the way it is presented also very, I mean, very well presented. I want to thank in a very profound way my president, the president of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Tasi Udil, and my very energetic president-elect of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Margaret Oguntala. Incidentally, she will be the president of NSC when I will be the president of WFEO. So in a lot of times, you will be seeing us together in a lot of the international trips. So I want to thank her also, the president of the Federation of African Engineering Organizations, PAPIES. Actually, this program, it has, you know, it's very really insightful for me. And and I also want to thank all the participants. I mean, I'm very glad with the interest people have indicated on what WFEO has been doing. And it has shown clearly that WFEO has been doing a lot for the interest of Africa, for the promotion of engineering in Africa. And the effort has been leading to a lot of fruitful. Please, somebody can somebody mute here? the effort of WFEO towards promoting engineering in Africa has been leading to many fruitful results, which has manifested in getting some of the engineering institutions having signatory status with the African, the International Engineering Alliance, which has also resulted in many engineers from Africa having responsibilities at the level of the WFEO in terms of sharing standing technical committees and policy implementation committee. And now to cap it all, for the global engineering community even to trust, one of us, even to lead the global engineering body, it shows in a very, loud voice that WFEO is really supporting the engineering and engineers in Africa. So I really want to thank the leadership of WFEO over the years and all the support I enjoyed from the former presidents of WFEO, Malin Kanga, Professor Gonke, Professor Joseph Vera, and of course, my executive vice presidents who are here. And I believe this support will continue because I will not allow you, you have to continue guiding me through the years of my tenure as president of this global body to ensure that Africa really leverage on this opportunity to promote engineering and to address the huge deficit we have in infrastructure in Africa. So with these few words, I want to really thank everyone, the participants also, for the interest they have shown in WFEO and what WFEO is doing. One thing I want to say is that please, for all the participants in this program, whether you are a leader in your engineering, contact me in case you have any issue you want to get cleared about WFEO on what we do or how WFEO can assist your institution or your person in whatever way possible. Our doors are open, our communication channels are open, either through telephone or email. You can contact us as we go forward. So thank you very much, everyone, and I very much appreciate. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. President-elect. Quickly, I think I can't see him, the chairman of the International Affairs Committee of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Engineer Ajibola, is supposed to make a remark, but I can't find him. Let me invite the chairman of the planning committee of these stakeholders interactive webinar, Engineer Valerie Aweraba, for her vote of thanks.
Thank you, Director of Programs, Engineer Ben Lucy, my own chairman. Thank you, you've done a very good job for us this afternoon. I think the President-elect has done almost everything that has to do with vote of thanks, so I won't be taking much time, but I want to specifically thank the President of the Nigerian Society of Engineers for giving us this platform to have this meeting. It's been very, very exciting, and I want to thank the whole of Africa, members of FAO who have been part of this program. My appreciation goes to the President of WFEO, past Presidents Malin Kanga and Gonke. I know they have had to go for other assignments. I also want to specifically thank the other presenters, FAO President Engineer Boache and Martin Manoa for making it possible to hear from them. All the contributors, my appreciation. The notice was quite short, but because of the love you have for FAO and WFEO, you have made yourself available for today. Vice Presidents of WFEO, Engineer Ashok and Engineer Tan, we thank you for honoring the invitation. And my appreciation also goes to Ania, Rumili, Matalanga, and every other one that's contributed. Special thanks to Engineer Kasim Ali for being here, past president of NSA and past president of CORE. Thank you for your contribution and the questions and issues you raised. We believe that all that has been discussed today will be looked into, and areas that we have not responded, we'll forward those questions and inquiries to those who are to give us the responses, and then we share. So once again, I want to thank everyone that has made this program a success. Without all the participants, we would not have said this program was a success. So we appreciate you for making your time to be here. And we hope to continue to learn about what WFEO is to Africa and what FAA is to African engineers. Thank you once again, and special thanks to my Deputy President. Apologies once again for the short notice, and thank you for making it possible. God bless all of you, and I wish you a very wonderful weekend. And I did this on behalf of the chairman also, who is on transit. The chairman, Engineer Ajibola, had to leave because he had a flight to catch. Thank you very much. God bless all of you.
All right, thank you very much. Aberaba, I think with that, we've come to the end of this program. Thank you very much and have a beautiful day.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
All of
See you
you.
some other time. Natalia,
See
thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Sorry, next month.
Ania, it was good to see you. And Romeli, see you soon.